Hello?
Hello, you're on the program. Good day to you, sir.
I very appreciate it. I very appreciate all what you are talking about it. Good day and good day to all the viewers of African Media. Thank you, African Media. Thank you for what you are doing. Thank you, Africa.
Mali's political scepter, after all efforts to quell the months-long tension in Mali, seem to be futile with not only continuous calls for President Keita to resign, but also rejection of ECOWAS' proposed solution by the country's lawmakers. The MPs whose contested election led to the start of violent civil disobedience have damned West African leaders' efforts by refusing to resign, terming the suggestion a violation to the constitution. Protesters say the overturning of 31 results of the March legislative election gave President Keita's party 10 more parliamentary seats, making it the largest bloc. As a solution to the worry, President Ibrahim Boubakar Keita dissolved the Constitutional Court and announced a reform. The West African leaders equally came out with a four-plan solution, among which the resignation of the contested MPs and the forming of a unity government involving the June 5 members. All these seem not to be enough to the protesters, who point out economic woes, heightened corruption and Keita's mismanagement of the jihadist conflict. Though, according to Mahmoud Diko, Muslim leader of the anti-government protests, Mali crisis can be solved without Keita quitting. What stakes then for Mali's political atmosphere? Could MP's defiant nature further jeopardize the search for a lasting solution to the crisis? What assurance for a return to peace amid jihadist insurgency? We talk about this in today's Views on the Continent. Solving the political impasse in Mali seems to be as difficult as a cow passing through the hole of a needle. This follows the refusal by lawmakers in Mali to answer to the call of resignation by the ECOWAS leaders after the presidents of the 15 West African countries sat in a summit on Mali on Monday to call on the resignation of the contested 31 members of parliament whose results led to the violent demonstration which is still ongoing in the West African nation of Mali. So far, so many mediations have been carried out, and none seems to be successful, or the efforts seem to be in vain. Lawmakers say they will not resign because the ECOWAS suggestion for them to resign is violating the constitution of the country. The protesters are equally insisting that the president, Ibrahim Boubakar Keita, must resign because he doesn't meet their expectations of solving the economic woes in the country, of fighting against corruption, and equally of handling the jihadist insurgency which has been hitting the country for over 8 years. What is then going to be the real approach to sort out the problem, the impasse, the political impasse and the crisis in Mali, which has already gone for weeks now and already going 2 months? What is the right solution? What is going to be the way out for this? We talk about this today in Views on the Continent, the last edition for the month of July and the last for the week. In the studio today is Mr. Fabrice Lena, a political analyst and the Secretary General of the PAP party and the Stand Up for Cameroon. Mr. Fabrice Lena, welcome to the studio.
Yeah, thank you very much, Rita, for inviting me once more to this program. I think I really appreciate and applaud the efforts of the opposition in Mali, because like an opposition leader in Cameroon, that is a good example to emulate, to follow. I think the opposition in Mali are doing a wonderful job. If our situation in Cameroon was being done like that, insisting on your standpoint without going violent, without taking arms, I think we would not have been in the mess that we are in today in Cameroon.
Okay.
You can see that in Mali, the opposition are winning because, first of all, Boubakar Keita is under pressure and has first accepted to form a unity government, which is already a good sign of achievement at the side of the protesters. And secondly, when you look at the reaction of the ECOWAS leaders, it's showing that the protesters' approach non-violently had yielded fruits that has caused head of states of the West African Economic Community and the political atmosphere to come together.
Okay.
Then you discover that the meeting they held on Monday was by sitting head of state. And it's difficult for a head of state to tell another head of state to resign or to go down, because it will turn around and come back to the same person, because all of them we know that when they are in power, they are always lamenting when their mandates are coming to end.
So obviously they couldn't support the call for
exactly. So the
colleagues.
call for immediate resignation is the bone of contention. That is the bone of contention, because we know the attitude of African leaders. You can see somebody like Yoweri Museveni of Uganda. In 2002, he said, "I will not cling to power." He's been 35 years in power and he still wants to stand. Look at an old man like Henry Konan Bedji of Ivory Coast, who wrote Côte d'Ivoire and was deposed in 1999, wants to come back and lead again. So you discover that most of the African blocs have emancipated due to the kind of actions that protesters like those of Mali had bring forward. And if they continue with the non-violent approach, with the non-violent method, I think they are going to obtain what they want. Because if I want to analyze very well the demands of these guys, because I try to get in touch with one of the protesters who is under Miguel Shoba, those guys with their difficult names. I got in contact with one of them, and he was trying to tell me that their problem is not sectorial reforms. The problem of Malians is not sectorial reforms. It's not for the government to come and say, okay, you this opposition leader, you shall be nominated this minister, or this person, we are going to share parliamentary seats, or this person, you will take over this part of. No. Their problem is that the government of President IBK, Ibrahim Boubakar Keita, had failed to solve the long-standing jihadist problem in the north that has made the country to be in insecurity situations for a very long time, since 2013. And that was one of his campaign speech for his ascension to power in 2013, and his revolt, because they wanted to give him the chance to solve that problem. And because even in the south of Mali that is relatively stable, there is high rate of unemployment, and he has been unable to solve the rising crime wave in Mali that is affecting neighboring countries. And in their country, they have not seen any significant improvement. And corruption had been the order of the day, considering the fact that his party had succeeded to have appointed authority at the level of their election commission, at the level of the parliament with the obese majority, at the level of ministry. So all this made the opposition to feel that they don't have,
a
a role
say
to
in the
play,
country,
a
they
saying
don't
to
have,
a
yeah.
good. Exactly, because it was the government was not consultative, and then the government had not produced the necessary public goods that the electorate of IBK were expecting, and that is why the opposition seized that opportunity to say no. What happened with the contested legislative result is just an immediate cause, because the people had been in serious worry over the years.
Yes, yeah.
They had been gathering. It's like somebody had been keeping all the wrongs that the government had been doing over the years, and then he just came. This just came like
the last drop.
Good, like the green light.
Yeah.
Yeah, the green light gave the people the go ahead to say that no, you have pushed us to the wall. It is time for you to resign.
Yeah. Okay.
And I really applaud this approach of West African citizens, because this approach of West African citizens had worked for some of the countries. It has worked for Algeria, it has worked for Burkina Faso, and I think it can work for Mali. It failed to work in Togo with Foreign Yasimbe, but I think that if these guys continue with a non-violent action, if they don't go violent, it will be very good. Because I just pray that protest, no matter the circumstance, it should be non-violent. Because violent protests become so difficult to solve. You can see what we are living in Cameroon today. Because when a protest goes violent, it is easy to give somebody a gun, but it's very difficult to take it back.
Grab the gun out of
Yes,
him.
so I think that the guys are doing a wonderful job there in Mali. They should keep up with the non-violent actions, and IBK is going to submit as an opposition leader. I encourage them, and I think that the ECOWAS leaders, in as much as their demands is political and in favor of their counterpart who is still in power, they are doing good. Because if you look at West Africa very well, the presidents of the regional bloc are concerned with what affects another country. What happens in another country that affects daily life, that affects political life, that affects economic life, that affects socio-cultural activities and cohabitation. Unlike Central African bloc, CEMAC. CEMAC is a complete mess. What is happening in Cameroon does not concern Equatorial Guinea, does not concern Chad, does not concern Central African Republic or Congo. It is absurd that Cameroon, that is like the backbone of the Central African CEMAC sub-region, is in trouble for 4 years, and nothing like an extraordinary summit, nothing like a meeting or whatsoever for these people to even say, well, what can we put forth as effort to see that the crisis in this country is resolved? Rather, it is continuous support to the head of state, that is fueling the situation, which comes to make us conclude that Central African is like a group of dictators that have their common modus operandi, has their common way of functioning to keep and support each other to stay in power. Because none of the Central African head of state now has been less than 10 years in power. So I first of all applaud the initiative of the West African head of states to intervene and help solve crises of their fellow citizens in the different countries that are in political crisis in their region. And it is but normal that they say that resignation of IBK is out of the question, because it's not a common phenomenon in Africa for a sitting African leader to tell the other person to resign. But it is now the responsibility of the protesters to keep on to their demands.
All right, we will come now to see how fruitful these protests and the persistence of these protests is going to be regarding the political atmosphere of Mali. So this is Views on the Continent, and we are discussing the political atmosphere of Mali and the futile efforts that to get the country out of the unrest situation and the crisis that is currently ongoing. So for those who are just joining us, it is an interactive program. Your calls and your contributions by Facebook messages are going to be welcomed in the course of the program when the time is due. As at now, I'd like us to take a listener to a report compiled by Clarice Widover, then we'll be back for the analysis.
No proposed solution to the crisis in Mali by the West African bloc ECOWAS seems to be appealing to both parties in the troubled West African nation. Members of parliament whose elections have been contested have said they will not quit as requested by the West African bloc, which is at the verge of finding a lasting solution to the impasse rocking an already fragile nation. These members of parliament have categorically argued that the recommendations by ECOWAS leaders urging them to resign goes against the Malian constitution. The MP's reactions follow an earlier call from West African leaders for the resignation of 31 parliamentarians elected in disputed polls and for the speedy formation of a unity government. The West African bloc ECOWAS, which is renowned for concretely solving regional issues that undermine nations' peace and stability, seems to be having a difficult task in Mali as actors in place have so far rejected their solutions to the political turmoil in the country. While the opposition continues to press for the resignation of President Ibrahim Boubakar Keita, Muslim cleric Mahmoud Dicko has underlined that the crisis can be solved without the resignation of the incumbent President Keita. What therefore could be the proper approach to solving the political impasse in Mali? Who has the solution to the Malian crisis? These are some of the questions that political parties or actors in the West African nation who are supposed to put Mali first before their political interests should answer.
Thank you, Clarice Widover, for this detailed report and follow-up in the political situation of Mali. So now I come back to you, Mr. Fabrice Lena. You are the Secretary General of the Popular Action Party of Cameroon, and you stand here equally now to speak in the voice of opposition members in your country and equally in African countries, since we are here to look at what's affecting the African country and how to ameliorate the situation. Now, the ECOWAS leaders have been trying everything to see how to get peaceful solutions for the fellow country, the fellow ECOWAS country, that's Mali. Now, the recent summit by the ECOWAS leaders to bring up solutions, among which 4 plans were proposed, was that the 31 members of parliament whose results were contested should resign from their position. This was already seeming to be fruitful until Wednesday, when the members of parliament said they will not resign and that the introduction of this kind of proposal is a violation to their constitution. Couldn't the MP's defiant nature instead further jeopardize the search for a lasting solution to the crisis?
Well, Rita, I would say that once an election have already been conducted,
yeah,
and people are empowered to take leadership, it is out of place at the beginning to come and tell those people to resign. is very difficult. It might even lead to violent protests.
Yeah.
Because the first thing is that many of these MPs might be coming there for their first time. Secondly, they had invested a lot to become MPs. Thirdly, they come through illegitimate means, which means that if credible elections are organized, they might not and never have the opportunity to be MPs.
Okay.
Now, looking at the context surrounding the Mali political situation, with a lot of security challenges, and the nature of the government of Boubakar Keita, you discover that the problem is not even the MPs. The problem is the president himself. If you look deep into what the protesters and the main opposition leaders want, it is the resignation of Boubakar Keita. And with the resignation of Boubakar Keita, it's going to help Mali to come to a transitional government. And that transitional government might now give provisions for the government in place with the opposition to define concessions for a transitional government, and the place of the MPs might be defined in that process. But coming to say that let the MPs resign as a way of solving the crisis. Now, when the MP resign, what will happen? Is it that the opposition guys that protested are going to be replacing the MPs, or that new elections are going to be carried out when the MPs and the opposition are going to participate? It is very ambiguous at that point. Very, very ambiguous. So the point here is that these guys want complete political transition.
Yeah.
And this political transition will begin with the departure of IBK.
But we shouldn't minimize the fact that President Ibrahim Boubakar Keita has been doing everything possible to try to amend the situation. He started by dissolving the Constitutional Court, which organized the legislative elections in March. It equally affected him when by his son resigning from his position as parliamentary president of the defense. And equally, he has accepted to form a unity government. All these are efforts by President Ibrahim Boubakar Keita to solve the problem. What do the opposition want? If they say they should resign, it means he wants some peaceful and transparent and fair election to be organized.
The people he's governing are not satisfied with all that. That is the question. The people he's governing are not satisfied. I remember one of the reasons for failure of Togo protests against foreign Nyaksimbe is because pro-Nyaksimbe supporters were against the protest of the opposition leaders and the guys that were against foreign Nyaksimbe. And that is one of the reasons why the protest now was a clash between pro-Nyaksimbe supporters and anti-Nyaksimbe supporters. But in Mali, we are seeing a complete wave of support for the opposition against IBK, which means that if 70% of a country's protesters are against the president, it means first, your election to the presidency is questionable. And secondly, your management of the country is illegitimate. And I can tell you, IBK has lost weight. From the IBK we knew in 2013, 2015, right up to 16, 17. With this protest, the man is just a shadow of himself. But I don't know why African leaders should think that hanging on power and looking for charade solutions should be the problem to solve political crisis. If you are the leader of a country, you must have led the country for more than 7 years. And the people think that 7 years is enough for us to test your capability of managing the affairs of the country. And they deem that it is you are not competent enough. You resign and try some other time. Yes, you resign. I think when Sam Najuma of Namibia, he was the one who led the Namibia to independence in 1975. And when the opposition wave started coming by the early 2000s, the guy said he has already done the great job of bringing the Namibia people to independence, to self-determination and then self-government. There is no need for him, after 70 years, to be fighting again with the youth of 40, 50 years. Why is it that some African leader will not emulate these good examples? That is it. If you are unable within the time that is given to you to manage, you should go down.
Okay.
And that is the main problem now in Mali. We are adding our voice as opposition in Cameroon with the opposition of Mali and the other opposition of other African countries that are having dictators in their country, like our own, because we are having our own dictator. Yes, Cameroon is also suffering from dictatorship, but we are praying that our citizens may come to be as proactive, as politically conscious and citizens like those in Mali and the other West African countries, because citizens in Central Africa are very, very passive.
Yeah.
Very passive. They have tolerance for everything, and you can see that those in the West Africa, they have zero tolerance for bad governance, zero tolerance for bad leadership, for presidents that cannot manage. So the essence here is this: the MPs might resign, but it will not solve the problem, because the guys are planning fresh protests after their feast today.
Sure.
I'm taking this opportunity to wish Fête de Tabaski to all Malian friends and all my friends in Burkina Faso, West Africa, that you people should enjoy very well. Meanwhile, enjoying, we should think of how to uproot these leaders that are not out to safeguard the interest of Africans. Because one other problem with IBK is that he is one of these neo-colonial leaders. Neo-colonial leaders that will always be with France to the detriment of his people.
Okay.
He supported France and accepted French troops in Mali in 2012 to 2014, and the French helped him to form his government in 2013, and that is the government that Malians saw that it is not in favor of the Pan-African spirit. It's not in favor of the doctrines of Thomas Sankara in neighboring Burkina Faso, or of Samora Michel. It's not in favor of those Pan-African spirit of the youth of Africa that want to take Africa to another step in this 21st century. So I think that these guys are doing a great job, and they have to keep up that good work.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Fabrice Lena. In the same light now, we have these protesters and opposition members that have rebuffed actually and refused totally with firm resistance at least 4 times all the efforts at compromise, and are bent at the fact that Ibrahim Boubakar Keita must resign or step down. Who then, who to them can step in and easily tackle all the economic woes and the insecurity, most especially which they are decrying?
I would like to say that if IBK steps down, and as a president who is patriotic and love his country, he can make provisions for a smooth political transition without any chaos, without any problem. He says, I resign, and decides to create a commission for what? Political transition, where he calls the opposition and calls people from his own party, asks them to sit on the table and perhaps, following their constitution, define how the transitional process will be managed, who is going to be an interim president for the transitional process, ask all the demands of the protesters, take all the demands of his own people who are in the present government of Mali, and then they harmonize a transitional government. And at the end of this transitional government, all what the people want and what his own people want, those that will be selected will be taken now to a fair play for elections that will elect a leader that the people want. We know how these things function. When you look at the situation of Cameroon, the Cameroonian people have a lot of problem with the government in place. Now, there are people who think that the government in place have no problem because they are benefiting from it, and they have their reasons. And we think that the government in place have complete problem, and we have reasons. Now, for us to arrive at a compromise for peace to reign, and for us to propel our country to another level of political maturity, we need to sit on the table and say, okay, These are my proposals, documented with my method and strategies. Bring yours. Then now we study and bring elements. In the process of doing this, the person who is the obstacle as the sitting president might decide to hand over power to what? A constitutional heir. Someone who by the constitution can be interim within the period of time that we are carrying out the process of transition, of making power to go to the people, of making power to be given to someone that will be democratically elected, perhaps with revisions that might come in based on what the people have noticed with previous governments.
But have you ever seen any African country in which there is no protest from the opposition or whatsoever? When we talk about democracy, it seems like it's just hanging in the air and it's not really existing. There is always opposition. Nobody's ever satisfied.
There is always opposition. And at least there is an extent to which a country opposition might be significant.
Yeah.
It is the level of significance, the level of wave or the shock or the rapport de force that it causes that might make us to think that there is a problem or another side is not doing its job. Opposition is in all countries that are existing in the world.
Sure.
Or every country has opposition. That means the present government of every country is not satisfying everybody. But if you see the way some presidents manage their opposition, very mature. It is a matter of being open to the people. It's a matter of discussing with the people. It's a matter of always trying to ask the people what they want. You can never satisfy all the people all the time, but it is the way you manage the people. We have presidents that have come to power, leave power, and today we see them as exemplary presidents here in Africa because of the way they manage affairs in their country when they were in power. We can talk of presidents like J.J. Rawlings of Ghana. During his days, it's not as if he did not have opposition. He had opposition. But he was a man down to earth. He would go down to the railway, discuss with the guys, discuss with what is the problem, and see how they could solve the problems of the people. It is the way the presidents manage their oppositions. Right up to Magufuli of Tanzania. The guy is trying to manage the opposition of his country very well. Unlike Paul Biya of Cameroon. Unlike Museveni of Uganda. Unlike Boubakar Keita of Mali. Unlike Faure Gnassingbé of Togo. These are guys that the first thing when opposition want to talk, they send outside is the military. No. Military makes civilian to become radical. That is what most presidents have not understood. Military makes civilians to become radical because once the military come, and African military have not emancipated to the level where they
of understanding the rights of protesters.
They need to, like some military in some countries, when presidents send them to go and do an action, they first of all question themselves. Is this action right? Or am I carrying a right instruction or a foolish instruction? Somebody should not just tell you that, Rita, go and do this. Even if it is your boss, you need to question yourself as a human being. You carry your responsibility. If they are investigating crimes, you bear your own crime.
Yeah, but
just for the fact that
at that level,
just for the fact that you are a military person carrying gun, which has to do with something that brings down life. You need to question yourself when you are carrying instruction. How constitutional is this instruction that I am carrying? That's the first question. How Republican? How will it lead to unity of the people or chaos of the people?
Okay, but in that same light,
those are things that
you're talking about reflecting and questioning the decision or the order of the president. that's it's quite problematic because I
there's
believe
nothing problematic there.
Rita,
there's nothing problematic there. Like let me just take this example.
Yeah.
When George Floyd was killed in US, and Trump sent guys to go and hush down the protesters.
Yeah.
What did a military commander of a particular state say? That it is wrong for the president to tell the police to go and hush down protesters. It is wrong.
There is, first of all, the understanding of the rights of protesters. Protesters are supposed to follow a particular order going by non-violence to make their voices heard and to make their cries or to bring out their points. And when they talk of the military going down to the streets to hush or to protect, because during protest actions, some protesters rather profit to loot. There is looting that is being carried out. So when the president, for example,
let me just make a point on that.
Yes.
On that, in every protest, there are always 1, 2, or 3 people that go out of the norms.
Yeah.
That is but normal. You can never have a protest in anywhere in the country where some people don't go out of the norms. Some people are not very rational.
Yeah.
In their approach. And then, what is the responsibility of the police? The police is there to control such people, not to go out of hand.
Yeah.
They are there to control such people, not to go out of hand. But when the police are the first to go and manifest irrational actions,
and to be very
by
on the
pouring gas, water, or some of these things itching to the people, when they have, first of all, internal anger and psychological war for something they are demanding from the government they are protecting.
Yeah.
That is where the problem comes.
Wrong, yeah.
That is where everything goes wrong. But if the police goes there and just make sure that there is calm, follow the people, and if somebody, one of these protesters who go out of the norms of non-violent action, does something, I think the police goes with a manner of conversation in a peaceful approach. I think the person will be well supported, and the leaders carrying out this protest will not ensure that there is violence or will not blame the police.
So in that case, I don't think when the president, any president gives the order for the police or the military to go down to the streets and to control the protests, I don't think he's giving them the order to go out and shoot. It is rather certain military or defense officers who are going out of the norm.
I am saying in a situation where we have seen so many instances where the presidents are the commander-in-chief of the armed forces of the country. Most of the African presidents.
Yeah.
Now, in this circumstance, when they give the order, go and check what is happening or control.
Yeah.
When these guys go and carry out actions that make protests to go out of hand, the president tends to say nothing. What do you make out of that?
That time they blame the military for that.
Of
All right.
course.
Now, as an opposition member, what advice can you give to like the other protesters across Africa? This is a Pan-African channel, and Africans are watching you, and the world is watching you. How can you advise people how to go about protesting to make the essence of their protest or the reasons for their protest go through?
I am glad for that question, and I would like to share with my fellow opposition leaders and the youth of Africa, and those that are in different citizenship movements across Africa, that I'm first of all an African, a Bantu, proud to be. And I would like to say that we, at our own level, in our movement, stand up for Cameroon, stand up for Africa. We have a method that we call non-violent action. And in this non-violent action, there is first of all training. There is training, weekly, every Friday. We do training of our members, militants, of what we call citizenship education, because the first thing is for every citizen to know what he needs to reclaim from the government and what not to reclaim from the government. Patriotism entails standing by your country, not standing by an individual. I always tell my followers, stand by my actions, not by my personality as Lena, but by my actions that you see are profitable to the institution that incarnate and to the country that I stand for and my continent. Which means if we have this knowledge, this citizenship education knowledge, that's the first thing. Now, when we see government actions that are not right, perhaps electricity problems, road problems, water problems, basic problems that people face in the community. Sometimes we go with the grassroots community citizens, we organize protests. What entails to carry a protest? Protest requires training, organization, formation, information, and it requires a lot of strategy in order for it to succeed. Because what we call non-violent action is very difficult to define when you are in the field.
Sure. Because
first, you need to understand that most African police or military are violent. And they are under presidents that do not take the responsibility to call them to order. Now, in that case, you are going out to protest to meet a violent military. Sure. What do? You have to prepare psychologically that the reaction might be to come and pour water on you, to come and shoot live bullets, to come and shoot rubber bullets, to come and beat and flog, to come and drag, to come and maim. Now, what are your preparations? If you want to go out for protest to achieve a particular goal, you need to determine a certain amount of people, a certain number of people.
Yeah.
Because it is a certain number of people that in the street to protest will determine the outcome of that. If you go out 100, 200 in a system where the police or the military is violent, I bet you all of you are going to be prisoners, or all of you are going to be arrested and tortured.
Okay.
But when you are in your thousands, when you are in millions, like what is happening in Mali, it's difficult for the military to
arrest everyone.
To arrest everyone, even though some people might have casualties. They might be casualties, but it's not going to. Now, on the side of the leaders who coordinate such protests, you need to make sure that you teach your people the right actions to do when they are in the field. When the military react like this, you need to react like this.
Yeah.
When the military does this, you need to do that. You need to develop patriotic songs. You need to develop devices on how to react per the reaction of the military. That's the proactive spirit. Because if you are preparing a protest, like in Bamako, of 10,000 Malian citizens, and out of these 10,000, I bet you about 6,000 to 7,000 are youth, very young people, which are university students, college, high school college students, or people of the working age group. Now, what happens is that the leaders will have, first of all, ensure that they organize this group of people through their small associations, groups, meeting points, religious groups, and so on, to communicate with them the method, the strategy of how to go out for the protest.
Implying that every form of protest, no matter what, has to be pre-organized.
Of course. A protest that is not organized will fail. A protest that is not organized will fail.
Okay.
Because you, the opposition and the protesters, as you are planning, that is how those in power who don't want to leave power are also planning to stay there. So they are, as you are proactive, they are also proactive. And they are waiting for your action to react. Which means that if your action is not well calculated, there's no way you are going to succeed. And if you see the citizens of Mali, the protesters of Mali, capable of having the propensity of change they are having now, is because they have done some work in the background and had prepared adequately for this moment to come, where they will bring and push the government to the wall to give them their demands.
All right, Mr. Fabrice Lena. Talking now about a protest action being organized properly. It brings us to question what's happening in Mali presently. We have the opposition members of the June 5 movement, whom obviously you mentioned earlier, have postponed their protest actions due to the Tabaski feast today, and have said they're going to resume on the 3rd of August, and that is if their demands are not being taken into consideration. Among their demands is the persistent call for President Ibrahim Boubakar Keita to resign. At the same time now, we have the Muslim leader of the anti-government protest. We have he's called Mahmoud Diko. He says there can be a solution to the Mali crisis without President Ibrahim Boubakar Keita quitting. How now do you explain how the organization of this protest action, because it seems like the protesters and their leaders are no more in one voice?
Yeah, when crises start in a country, the people that originally start it, if you are not careful and calculative enough, some other persons are going to hijack it, and you might not even have a say in it. This is exactly what happened with the Anglophone crisis in Cameroon. At the early stage, some persons were at the forefront. Just few months after, the persons were nowhere to be found, and they could not talk again up to today. Other persons hijacked it. So now, what happens when protest comes up is that the political leaders who are in place are persons that will easily be contacted by the government and might easily be compromised.
Okay.
And in the course of discussions, mediations, what is probable is that with a lineage of leadership, you can easily identify who has been compromised, who is fighting a just cause, who is with the people, and what you want. Because if the protesters are saying that IBK is the problem to Mali as of now, and one of their leaders come to say the crisis can be solved without IBK, then the proposals of the ECOWAS leaders and the desire by IBK to form the unity government is already a solution. The demand for the resignation of some of the MPs is already a solution. But you would see that all these are sectorial reforms, because even if all these things are done, after some time, some people will still say our original plan was never these things. It was for IBK to resign. That is why when you are a leader and you want to solve a problem, it is better to be resilient and solve the problem at its root than accept charade and shadow solutions that in the long run will still resurface other problems. Mali is a very, very fragile state in terms of security. Very fragile. Very fragile in such a way that if a president is leaving, is resigning in Mali, and the person doesn't have good faith, because my problem is about the person willing to lead, willing to make sure that his country should not go into more chaos when he is not there. Because if IBK dare to resign in a funny manner, Mali will go into more serious crisis than it is now. So the issue is that when you want to solve a problem, make sure that you solve the problem once and for all. And it's better to be resilient and stand with what you want than to accept reforms that might put you into difficulties with the people that are following you. Because sometimes I might take a decision and I don't consult my people. I don't know what they are saying in the background. At least, for me, I always consider that 70% of the people, if they are okay with you, you can go ahead. But if it is 50-50, there's a problem. So at least if it is more than half of the people you are following who tells you that take this decision, go like this, then it's good. Because many of the head of state of ECOWAS and some leaders of Mali have discussed, have had pre-talks with is it Mahmoud Diko?
Mahmoud Diko.
Yeah, Mahmoud Diko. Yeah, they have had pre-talks with Mahmoud Diko in the background. And
but it's necessary, because in every protest we still need to be reasonable.
Of course, it's not
So-
as if it's
so
not
I
to be
think
reasonable.
I-
But it's always good. It's always good that in negotiations it should be consultative.
Okay.
The reason for consultation is this: if you go and meet an individual, he's a leader, he accepts. Now, sometimes a leader might accept, believing that he's going to convince his people, but he goes, it becomes difficult. But now, when you take some of your people, and now in that discussion or that area where at least some of your people are there, when you people are going as a group or a block to talk now to the rest of the population, it will sound more understanding
Yeah.
than when you are an individual, especially when you're a leader. Because the followers always believe that all the leaders are the same. In quotes, sometimes. Yes, especially when they are seeing you moving away from your original stance. So that is the situation.
Okay. Now you see, Mali has already been suffering from jihadist attacks and insurgency since 2012, which is already jeopardizing the security situation of the West African nation. And the citizens actually taking into consideration that this extending protest could rather derail the focus from the enemy and instead ease this resurgence of more attacks by jihadists. Are they taking this into consideration?
Rita, I would like to say that that enemy you are calling is enemy within, no, it's not enemy without.
Yeah.
Because the armed groups that are existing in Mali are not foreigners.
Sure.
They are Malians who at a particular time, because of their attachment to other world terrorist groups, decided to declare the autonomy of their state in northern Mali until the intervention of the French forces. So, when you look at the situation in North Mali, it is few mercenaries from the other Mediterranean, Middle East Arab countries, and some in Algeria and some in Libya, that had come to prone those that are in Mali to be more radical. Originally, they were the ones that started before the outsiders came to be. But majority of the fighters in the name of the different armed groups in the North Mali are Malians, are guys from Mali.
Without cutting you, let's take a caller online.
Okay.
Mr. Adams is calling from Togo and would like to give his own contribution on the program. Welcome, Mr. Adams. Hello? Hello? Mr. Adams, you're live on the program. If you're on air, if you're online, just go on. Okay. We'll come back to you, Mr. Fabrice Lena. So you were giving us the origin of the jihadist insurgency.
Yeah, in North Mali. So I said North Mali had been a place where, like many African countries, the headquarter or the capital is detached or very far away from the northern part, and then the administration there was lax, somehow lax. So these guys took that laxity of government administration in North Mali, plus the problems of social amenities, poor infrastructural development, poverty, and so on, to cause the insecurity problems there. And I think that one of the factors the protesters are advancing is that Keita had failed to contain the insecurity problems in the north.
Okay.
Yeah, he has failed to contain. Now, failure to contain might be that these groups are people that the government knows. They had already declared them to be terrorist groups, and so whatever thing that is there is for the government to fight them. Then it means the government is not putting enough resources to fight them, or the guys are overweighing the government forces and therefore making the citizens to suffer, which means there is need for a new government to come who can struggle to contain these guys. That is the question there. Because why, there will be a question of why is it that French forces combined with Malian forces are unable to contain the guys in the north?
Good question.
And another issue is this: if North Mali is unable to fill the administration of Bamako, then there is a serious problem there. And with a system of governance there, because as you all know, most French African countries, most Francophone African countries are unitary states. Unitary state where the government is centralized in a particular country, just like Cameroon, everything is centralized in Yaoundé. You are in Bambili, you write exams there, you have to go to Yaoundé to follow up so whatsoever at the ministry. So decentralization is a farce. Federation to them is a taboo. So you begin to see that their form of government and system of governance is a serious problem.
Okay.
And this lack of autonomy for people to control their local resources and be able to manage their local affairs, everything depending on the central government that will take so long to respond to the people's problem, becomes some of the problems why smaller states break away from the main states. And that is the reason for the coming up of the armed groups in the north. And the protesters think that if there is a political transition, the voices of those guys in the north who might be able, politicians in the north who might be able to contain the insecurity problem in the north, might be helped in the transitional process. And why not? It will help to reduce the problem that Keita had been unable to solve.
All right. Gearing now towards the end of today's edition, I would just like to know what could now be the proper solution to solve this political impasse in Mali? Who has the solution to this lasting crisis?
IBK has the solution. Yeah, IBK has the solution. If I were in Mali and I am an opposition in Mali, I would tell, I would say the same thing, that IBK, please resign, for your people to resign and prepare political transition for your people. Don't just resign. Resign with good faith. That is it. Resign while preparing your country for a political transition. You people say I'm not leading well, right? Yes, okay. I will resign, preparing what? A commission for political transition, where Malians will sit together and define the destiny of their country. He will be part of that process to enable that it pass smoothly. And there it will solve the problem. Even if it doesn't solve, because we know it will never solve all the problem, but at least it will solve majority of the problem, which is the reason for the people's prolongation of the protest as of now. Which means if he resigns, the people say, okay, your demand has been met. And then now we go to the table to look at what is the future of Mali from now. Interim government, transitional government, new elections, new president. At least it will solve problems.
All right. Thank you so very much. Mr. Fabrice Lena, Secretary General of the Popular Action Party and Stand Up for Cameroon, thank you for accepting the invitation. Thank you, televiewers, all of you who tried to participate on the program but could not go through, and equally those who've been contributing on our Facebook page. Thanks to the technical department and all those tuned to watching and following the transmissions of Afric Media. Today was the last edition for the month of July. I seize the opportunity to wish a happy feast of the Tabaski to all Muslim and to all our Muslim televiewers. Seizing this opportunity equally to inform you of the Pan-African debate tomorrow, same time, 14 hours GMT, with Clarice Weirdoven for more interesting topics that are going to sort out solutions for Africa's problem. Till then, have a wonderful weekend and see you next time. Bye-bye.
Hello.
Hello, you're on the program. Good day to you, sir.
I very appreciate it. I very appreciate all what you are talking about it. Good day and good day to all the viewers of Afric Media. Thank you, Afric Media. Thank you for what you are doing. Thank you, Africa.